Are these gloves a bit much? I like them, but they're really Tag Heuer, which I think is a bad thing, but well, anyway, they're staying on because it's bloody freezing today. Hello one and all, welcome to Seen Through Glass. Yeah, welcome to a sunny but very chilly day here in the UK. And welcome back to my GT3. I bloody love this thing. I feel like I said that quite a lot last year, but I truly adore it. I gotta be honest, when I ordered this car, I wasn't entirely sure what the GT3 ownership experience was gonna be like. Kind of assumed that I would have the car for like 12 or 18 months, do some trips in it, and then probably move on and try out a different Porsche product. But here we are, almost exactly 12 months from when I collected this car, and I don't want it to go anywhere. It is crept into my heart, and I'm low-key obsessed. Yeah, low-key obsessed. So I've been trying to work out how I can use this thing more in 2024 than I did in 2023. I did some cool stuff with it last year, but I want to go further afield and spend more time behind the wheel of this car over the next 12 months. So whilst I was sitting there trying to come up with, well, ideas of where to go and what to do with this car this year, well, it started to dawn on me that I could do more with it if it was a tad more practical. Now, I actually sort of spec this thing as practical as you can make a GT3 from the factory. We don't have those awkward, lightweight carbon bucket seats. There's no roll cage. And that's because I always knew I wanted to use this thing for adventures to twisty mountain roads rather than for endless track days. So yeah, I wanted lots of space in the cabin and comfort getting in and out of the car, things like that. Problem is though, whilst I did make it as practical as you can make a modern day GT3 from the factory, like all modern day GT products from Porsche, well, it's strictly a two-seater. That's to help aid in the whole lightweight ethos of these cars. Problem is, these days, I'm a family of three, or four if you count the dog. Me, my wife, our one-year-old daughter, and yeah, Twiggy the Jack Russell. So some of the bigger ideas I had for this car this year, well, suddenly meant I'd be spending a lot of time away from my family, because, well, I can't exactly bring them with me in this car, can I? Or can't I? Because yes, whilst this is a two-seat GT3, it is still a 911, and there are plenty of 911s out there with rear seats, so surely it's not impossible to retrofit or aftermarket install rear seats into one of these cars. I started to do my research and found that one or two companies are doing just that. So yes, as the title of this video has given away, and maybe as you've noticed over my shoulder, I've installed rear seats into my 992 GT3. Let me show you how it was done. Now, the company I decided to use for this conversion is GT3 Belts. They're actually based out of California in America. Now, there are a number of reasons why I chose them over any others, and we'll get into those reasons shortly. But first and foremost, it's because their install is entirely reversible. My car can be put back to factory specification, i.e. a two-seater, in just a few hours. And that's because their install itself only takes a few hours. As you can see, the necessary work was carried out to my car at Windrush Car Storage, but kind of could have been done in any garage or even on a driveway. And that's because GT3 Belts don't need to do any structural modifications to a modern GT3 like this in order to fit rear seats. No holes have to be drilled, no metal has to be welded into place, the chassis and bodywork doesn't have to be modified. They simply use some very clever proprietary tooling to take advantage of the existing seatbelt hardware, which is part of every 911, whether that be a GT3 or a Carrera T. As you can see here, various parts of the inner trim have to be removed, and then that exposes the original factory connection points for the belts. It's quite funny because once all this is pulled back, you see how Porsche basically creates so many variations of the 911 out of one incredible base model. It's like a sort of weird Jenga game or Lego Technic. Now, whilst there are no major structural modifications, I am aware they have to make some small cuts to some of the rear insulation just for the seatbelt buckles. I guess if you want to put your car back to sort of standard, you either have to replace this insulation or stitch it back to place. I didn't actually ever ask GT3 Belts that because I have no plans to put my car back to standard. But anyway, the buckles are bolted onto their lower mounts, and then the various bits of insulation and trim are replaced. It's basically done. All you add is some seat cushioning. That's kind of it, because one of GT3 Belts' key focuses is to keep the lightweight ethos of a GT3. The reason this car is a two-seater in the first place is to keep the overall weight down, and they and I don't want to mess up all of Porsche's good work just so I can take my daughter to the shop to get some milk every now and again. So GT3 Belts choose not to install the factory backrest as part of this kit. That keeps weight down, you save about 3.5 kilos, but also helps them avoid having to drill into the chassis. Now, their kit complies with all global safety standards without the backbench,
And look, the factory backbench offers no neck protection anyway, so there's no real benefit to having it. And actually, by not having the backbench, it's a little bit more of a comfortable experience. More on that in a moment. Now, this kit starts from around $4,000, and GT3 Belts offer a huge amount of customization. I've kind of underplayed how much R&D went into all of this because it's just such a simple job when you see it happen in front of you. But safety was a priority, lightweight was a priority, and usability was a priority. And I have to say, I was super impressed by the work that was carried out on my car.
Now, I don't know if you've ever spent any time in the back of a 911, but it's not necessarily the most comfortable place to be. If you're anything over 5'3", you're not really going to want to spend a lot of time back here.
Mate, they're not seat. That is not a seat.
Put your seatbelt on, son. Having said that, because GT3 Belts don't use the kind of factory backrest, it means you have a bit more space to kind of lean into. I can squeeze my legs around the side of the seat, lean back into this kind of rear area and be kind of comfortable. Let me just put the actual belt on so that I'm strapped in and safe. And I have to say, it's not dissimilar to a Ferrari FF or an Aston Martin Rapide. It's definitely better than, I would say, like an Aston Martin DB11 or a Ferrari Roma, and definitely better than a standard 911 with the factory rear seats, because they're so upright, the backrests with the factory rear seat, that you sort of sit up like this and your head hits the roof. You can't get back to that kind of rear compartment. So I'm not just saying this because I've been brainwashed and I've spent the money to install these things, but I honestly could spend a good few hours back here. Would I want to go to Monaco in the back of this car? Probably not, but I could force someone to do so. And it's somewhere that if my wife needed to spend time, she probably could without complaining too much. I'm not sure what the GT3 ride would be like back here. I kind of need to get someone to drive my car and for me to sit in the back. But GT3 Belts do offer a little bit of cushioning, like a Velcro cushion for the backrest, I suppose. This is their most lightweight standard option, but if you want a little bit of support, a little bit of cushioning, they offer that. And I've just ordered those because not only will they provide a little bit more comfort, potentially, they'll also offer a bit more support for this. So welcome to what I think is the piece de la resistance of this install, the Pasha baby car seat. How freaking cool does this look? Now, I got to be honest, this is the reason why I did this. Yes, it's cool to have rear seats in a GT3, and I like the idea of being able to get a load of mates in here and go on a blast, but I really did it so that my daughter can come on adventures with me, so that we can travel as a family. And I just love the fact that GT3 Belts are able to match your interior trim. So yes, it's a Pasha car seat. Now, important to note for other parents out there that might be considering doing this, because this install is fully reversible, there's no ISOFIX mounting points that you can install for these kind of rear seats. That requires too much modifications. It's too much hardware. Essentially, it's basically too hard to do. So you have to use the seat belt to mount any car seat. So that's fine with this seat. It's got loads of mounting points to just use the seat belts, not ISOFIX. But if you're not going to order the seat through GT3 Belts, make sure whatever car seat you're ordering can do that as well. This is fully safety approved to be attached with just using the seat belt. Now, actually, safety is an important note. I would never have done any of this if it wasn't fully safe, and it's one of the main reasons I chose GT3 Belts over any of the other companies that are offering something similar. It's because safety was a priority for the founder of GT3 Belts. He owned a 991.2 generation GT3 RS, then he had a son, and he was like, well, I don't want to go out the car, I don't want to go places without my son. So he used his engineering background to work out how he could latch onto those existing seatbelt points within a GT3 or GT3 RS and get himself a situation where, say he could install the car seat and they could all go on adventures together. So this is fully insurance approved here in the UK. I think if you're going to do this, it's worth calling your insurer to talk them through what's going on and make sure they're happy with it. But because it uses all that Porsche official safety infrastructure for the belts, it's not really any questions. It's not a hatchet job where you just kind of like bolted some stuff on. It's the proper seat belts. They're just put back into place. They weren't here and now they are. So it means this car is ready for adventures. I mean, obviously, I say it being a GT3 might be a little bit bumpy for my daughter every now and again, but she can be fully strapped in. The seatbelt goes up until she's about 4 or so, and then after that, well, she can just sit back here and enjoy it. It future-proofs this car ever so slightly and makes it ready for those big adventures. So there we have it, rear seats in my GT3, meaning this thing is well and truly ready for some big adventures this year. I hope I answered some of the questions that you'll have about this install process. I feel like there'll be a lot more questions, so if you've got them, just put them in the comments section below. I'll try and get back to you, or at least I'll address them in the next time I film with this car. When's that likely to be? Well, you know, this time of year, it's usually a lot of planning, a lot of admin ready for all the adventures ahead. Got a lot of personal stuff going on at the moment, so yeah, it just means that I'm kind of having to hunker down, get everything ready, so that as the weather improves, or we can set off on some big trips. To tease some of those trips might be, well, I feel like America's calling. I feel like America's calling this car, so that's one of the bigger ideas. But I want to take it to parts of Europe that I haven't been to for a while. There's a few events that I want to attend, some supercar rally sort of convoy things that I feel like I should go on. And the exciting thing is, not only can my family come with me on some of those trips, but I could also load up with, you know, photographers and videographers to enhance the content, but also take my mates with me. I feel like there's some kind of trip that needs to happen where we really test the 4-seater capability of this car. Maybe get Paul Wallace and Tony from Gravel and Seb Delaney loaded up and we go on a trip somewhere. It will be hilarious and probably quite uncomfortable, but I think it's doable. I really do think it's doable. So yeah, some of you might think I'm a bit mad having done this, and you might have concerns, but for me it just opens up the possibilities with this thing. And I want to start racking up the miles in this car. I do not feel like 8,500 miles is enough. I expected to do like at least 15 in year one. Nowhere near that. So we got some work to do, but it's exciting work to have. And yeah, I just want to spend more time with this thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this update. As I say, at the moment, that's kind of what's going on. The Challenge Stradale, currently down at AV Engineering, getting some of the work done that we outlined last week's video. That's getting ready for its first adventure. And the first trip in this car shouldn't be too much further away. So stay tuned, subscribe now. I promise you, the trips aren't far away, people. The trips in this car this year are going to be good. I'll see you soon.